Mayor Moore, you recently celebrated your 18th anniversary of being cancer-free, October 6, 2006. I'm going to ask you to go back even further than that.
Well, I was married with 3 young kids, and I was extremely fit. A few years prior, I had started getting into jazzercise, and Angie Maxwell had a class up the road here, and for probably 3 or 4 years, I got really fit, really in shape, and I decided I was going to run for county commissioner in January of 2006. Signed up to run, and within a week, I was taking a shower and I noticed on the side of my neck, it felt like a little pea in my neck. I thought, I wonder what that is. And a couple of days later, I made an appointment with my doctor, and he looked me over and said, oh, I think it's just a drainage issue, you know. I'm going to give you a prescription. It'll take that down, and if not, come back and see me in a month. Well, by that time, the campaign was getting to going, and it was still there a month later. And I thought, well, I'm going to wait. The primary's in early May. I'll wait and see if it's still there. So towards the middle of May, I made another appointment with the doctor and went to go see him. And I said, you know, that knot's still there. And he's like, oh, I still don't think it's anything. You know, let me give you another prescription. And I was smart enough, and I guess by that time old enough to stand up and say, you know what, I don't want to take a chance. Let's do something more than just coming back 30 days from now. So they scheduled a biopsy, and had the biopsy done, I believe, on a Thursday, and they told me it'd be a couple of days before they got back with me. Unfortunately, that was Memorial Weekend, and so the Monday was off, and I'm anxiously waiting to hear the results. And on Tuesday, I still hadn't heard anything, and I called the office where the lab was taking the biopsy, and they said, oh, your doctor hasn't called you yet. And I'm like, no, and they said, well, he'll be giving you a call. And I'm like, all right. Well, the next day turned into Wednesday, and I used to have Jerry's Restaurant up here on 10th Street. I was working that day, and I remember it was 3 o'clock on May 31st, 2006, and I get a phone call, and it's Dr. Burke, and he's like, Mike, I've got some bad news. And I'm walking out the back door of Jerry's, I'm out in the parking lot, and he says, unfortunately, you have cancer. And my wife says, what are his chances? What do you think his chances are of surviving? And he said, I think he's got a 50-50 shot of making it a year. So, needless to say, my wife at the time lets out a huge scream, and I'm like, all right, calm down, calm down. We leave there and go home, and you know, every question you can think to ask of yourself, you're asking. And you're feeling sorry for yourself. I'm thinking about my 3 kids, they're 6, 8, and 10. Who's gonna take care of them? So, a few days later, we had the appointment with Dr. Ham, the oncologist. We go over to his office, and same kind of question. And you know, like, what do you think my chances are? And he said, well, what'd your primary doctor say? I said, he said I had a 50-50 shot. He said, I think your primary doctor is way too optimistic. Well, my wife at the time, again, lets out a huge scream. And we're like, what do you mean? And he said, you've got about a 15% chance of making it 12 months.
Wow.
And I went to Dr. Albrink, who used to be over here, and he wanted to know what I'd been told, and I shared with him both my primary doctor and my oncologist's point of view. And you know, I said, what would you do? And he said, let me think about it. And a couple of days went by, and I will always be indebted to Dr. Albrink. He called me it was after 7 o'clock on a Friday night, and he said, you know, you put me on the spot. He said, locally, we don't like to tell people to go elsewhere from the area, but you asked me what I would do in your situation. He said, if I had young kids, I'd get down to MD Anderson. I'm like, well, how do I do that? He said, would you like for me to make an appointment for you? I was like, sure. So within a few weeks, I'm on a plane. I'm going to Houston, Texas, and get down there, and it's unlike anything I can explain or that you can envision around here. It's called a medical center, and there's hospitals everywhere you look. And Houston, Texas is one of the leading areas to go for fighting cancer. And go in, listen to what the doctors say. Actually, I took a tape recorder with me because I'm thinking, I'm going to be so nervous I'm not going to remember what they say. And you know, they just told me, we're going to tackle this, and we're going to knock you down as far as we can take you, and then we're going to build you back up. But you know, you're going to be going through a lot of changes. We're going to take you through chemotherapy, or then we're going to take you through radiation, and I'm still running for county commissioner. And I remember on July 3rd, I was in a hospital bed with an IV hooked up to me. My chemo treatments were like Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and they were like 9 hour a day. You laid there in bed with an IV. And it was July the 3rd. That's my daughter Shelby's birthday. And I had dropped my phone in a cup of water that day. So I wanted to call her. I couldn't call her. So again, you think you're a healthy guy, you want to reach out and wish your daughter a happy birthday, and I couldn't do it. It was pitiful. And I thought to myself, you know, you can either feel sorry for yourself or you can fight this thing. And they wanted me to preserve all of my energy. They said, this is going to knock you down so hard. You need to save your energy. You know, just keep coming to these treatments. And I thought, no, I want my body and my mind to be as strong as I possibly could. And I continued to work out. I've told Angie Maxwell many, many times from Jazzercise, she saved my life, because I knew if my mind was strong and my body was strong, I could beat anything. And, you know, even though the doctor here was telling me, you're not going to be around 12 months from now, I thought, the hell I'm not. I'm going to fight this. And I was running 2 or 3 miles a day every day. I was lifting weights. I was doing everything I could. And I was exhausted, but I felt good about myself. And the chemo did everything they tell you it's going to do. You know, I was bald within 2 weeks' time, and but I laughed about it. And I came home and I told the kids, you know, well, this tells us the medicine's working. You know, Dad looks different now. I've lost, you know, at that time about 20 pounds. I've lost my hair, but this is good because it means the medicine's doing what it should. And the 4-H fair was about that time, the county 4-H fair, and my slogan was, I'm for Mike Moore. And I told my kids, there was a blue Sharpie on the kitchen counter. I said, you know, everybody's going to be staring at your dad. Let's have some fun. So I had them on the back of my bald head in blue Sharpie, write, I'm for Mike Moore. And we walked around the 4-H fair, petted the cows, petted the pigs. I thought, you know, I'm not going to be that guy that puts on a hat and hides from this. People knew I was dealing with cancer. I was Jerry's Restaurant. I got, you know, you saw me every day. Yeah, I didn't look so good, but I kept that smile on my face because I was fighting for something. I was fighting for my 3 kids. And, you know, I think about the different ways you could have approached it. And I'm glad I had this, you know, heck no, I'm not going to listen to the doctor. I'm not giving up. And, you know, Shelby, Allie, and Garen, here we are now, 25, 27, and 29. I became a grandpa a little over a year ago.
In that political race?
And that political race I won. And, you know, I wondered at the time when I had cancer, you know, you find yourself, like I said, you're asking yourself so many questions. You know, what's my purpose? What does God want me to do? And, you know, the restaurant business, I had 30 years, very, you know, very good life, hard work, but it was a good living. But I thought God wants more from me. And, you know, is it the county commissioner? Well, the county commissioner then turned into the mayor. And I still ask myself, what is your purpose? When that grandbaby was born September 20th of 2023, I think I know what my purpose is and what God meant for me to do. And Dad always told me, your family name is the most important thing you own.
I mean, sitting in this office, people don't even run against you because, really, you're a bridge builder. I mean, people from all walks of life have embraced you. Obviously, the personal side, being a grandfather, all of that is in your faith. But what is it about this city that just makes you, you're on fire for it?
My family moved here from Lexington, Kentucky before I was born. We had Jerry's restaurant for 50 years. And Mom and Dad always told us, stay out of politics, because the restaurant business, you'll offend people. But it was the love Mom and Dad had for the city of Jeff. Growing up in Oak Park, I had this storybook childhood, and I had 15 sets of parents all around Oak Park looking after me. But I grew up here, I love it here. I wanted my kids to be able to say they wanted to come back here. I graduated in '82. A lot of people my age, they got a college degree and they moved someplace else. I always thought we had to do more in order to make sure people stay. And now when I hear kids in their 20s say, I want to live around Jeffersonville, the opportunities and the possibilities were always here. You just had to tap into them. And we've had over 160 neighborhood meetings. I'm not a genius. I'm not this guy who's got all these ideas in the back. I go to these neighborhood meetings and I listen to what people are asking for. We want nice parks. We need stronger schools. We need this road widened. We need, this walking bridge across to Louisville, Kentucky. We need a new marina. All of those ideas, all these changes that we've created have come from listening to people say, this is what I want Jeffersonville to have. Well, now we've got it, and you don't have to go across the bridge to go to a movie or to go to Clarksville, to go to a store to buy clothes. Opportunity's always been here. It's just sometimes, Dad always said, you learn more from listening than you do from talking.